guys, my name is Valentine and I wanted to show you in this tutorial how you can write API tests with Postman, how you can run them in a CI server like Jenkins, and I'm going to cover all this in this short tutorial. Hope you enjoy it and let me know what you think about it, if it helped you on what you're currently doing. And if you have any other feedback for me, just let me know. I'm just very curious to learn what you're doing with Postman, how you're using it, and maybe I can learn from you something as well. Thank you for watching and hope you learned something new. So let's get started with this tutorial. So in case you didn't already know that, Postman offers you the possibility of actually writing some API tests. And of course, running manually these tests doesn't make very much sense, because if something changes on your API, you will have to manually rerun all the tests. So the idea would be to write some API tests using Postman and taking these tests and running them automatically as often as you like in a continuous integration server like Jenkins. So what we would like to do is to avoid running tests manually whenever possible. And this is exactly what we're going to do in this tutorial. We're going to write a simple API test with Postman, and we're going to run these tests in Jenkins. So let's have a detailed look at what we are going to do right now. So first, as I already said, we're gonna write a simple test in Postman, and then we're gonna take this test and we're gonna create a project which will store test collections, and in this case it will be only one collection. And additionally, we'll be using Newman to actually run this test, and Newman is a Node.js application, so we'll define it as an npm dependency. And our project will have a dependency on Newman. And then we're gonna go in Jenkins, we're gonna use the new pipeline-dsl to add another stage in our tests. And in that stage, we'll run the Postman tests. And after that, we're gonna see how we can configure the reports so that we can nicely see how many tests have failed and to track over time how the tests are doing. So let's get started with the first step and write a simple test in Postman. So I find this online service which offers a fake online REST API for testing and prototyping. And this is exactly what I'm going to use to write the test. Here are different endpoints that are offered. And let's say I'm gonna just pick this one to see how the response looks like. Okay, so this is exactly what I would like to have here. So I'm gonna copy this address. This is a GET request. And I'm gonna switch to Postman, where I will put this. And I will actually see the exact same response here. So this looks good. Next, we are going to look into writing some tests. And let's make it very simple. We are going to just test that the status code is 200. So we want to make sure that the endpoint actually worked as expected. And let's see what we can do. Response body contains a string. So this is a test. Let's save it to a collection. And we're gonna call them let's call in JSON placeholder.com. Okay, so this is going to be how we name our collection. And as you can see, we have one request here. Let's have a look at the second one. So we can try if we want delete. So it's going to be a delete request. Of course, I still need to put in the address. Okay, let's try it out. Okay, so the status was 200, and we're gonna write here test as well. Let's see here what we want. Status code is 200, and let's add something that might fail in the future. So as you saw, the response time was 600 milliseconds here. Let's do it once again. Okay, it's almost 1 second. So let's put, oops, sorry. So let's write here another test which says the response should be under 1 second. See if it fails. Of course, the tests that I'm writing right now are just some dummy tests to see that we have some tests, but otherwise it doesn't make a big difference. We are gonna use this collection here. I'm gonna save it. So great, we have 2 requests here and 4 assertions in total. And as far as I know, all the tests should be green. Oh, there's actually 1 test here failing. So let's replace it with this one. So we have in the body match a string. This is the string that we want to match here. Actually, we have 2 tests and both green. As I said, the contents of the test is not really relevant at this point. Great. So we did the first step. We have a test, and next we should put everything in a project. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna download this collection. I'm gonna choose the version 2, and I'm gonna export it. And let's create here a new folder, and this will be my project name. Let's call it postman-Newman Jenkins. And inside here, I'm gonna create a new folder. I'm gonna call it tests. And this is where I will place the export. So this was successfully saved. So we already completed the first 2 steps. We created a simple test in Postman, and we created a project which contains the test collections. And what we're going to do next is to define Newman as an npm dependency. So Newman is the CLI tool which will allow us to actually run the test. So how Postman likes to call it is the CLI companion for Postman. What I'm actually trying to do is not to install it globally, neither on my local machine nor on Jenkins, but I just want to define Newman as an npm dependency in the project that I just created. So I'm gonna open the terminal to do that. So I'm going to my works, to my project. I call it Postman. And I actually already have Node installed on my machine, and I have npm installed. So that being said, I don't have any other files in my project right now apart from the tests. So I'm going to initialize a new npm project. And I'm going to use npm init for that. And the name is just fine. The version is just fine. Project for storing Postman tests. I don't actually need an entry point. And I'm gonna skip this part here. So this is how it will look like. And we'll change it a bit later to match our needs. But for the initial step, this is just fine. So the package.json was created, as we can see, and we can just quickly inspect the contents. this looks good. Next, we're going to add Newman as a dependency. So we're going to use npm install Newman, and we're going to save it as a dependency. Okay, so it looks like Newman was found, and we're going to have another look. Where was that? We're going to have a look at the package JSON, and what you will notice is that the dependencies were added here, and we can actually use Newman at this point. Now, want to get a bit more in detail. First things first, we don't actually need node modules that were added here. So I'm going to just remove them. And next, we actually want to change some things in the package JSON file. And there are a lot of things that we actually don't need here. So we can just start removing some things. And this is the interesting part that we will definitely want to look at. So it's possible here to define different scripts, different test setups. And for example, this can be a test setup that is run on a test system, and you can define another one which is in a pre-production or in a production server if you need it. So you can define here multiple environments. So let's call it API tests. Let's say production. And we are gonna write here the command that actually executes the tests, and that will be Newman run. I'm gonna paste it here. And the license part, I don't actually need it, so I'm gonna remove that as well. And this already looks good. So if you look again at the files that we have the package JSON, which we just edited, which contains information to how to run our tests and what are the dependencies for the tests, and the test folder, which contains our Postman collection. Next, what I would like to do is to actually use Git for this project. So I'm gonna initialize a Git repository here. And if I do git status, I will see that I still have some untracked files, of course. I'm gonna add them all. And now they're both added, so I can commit them. Next, what I'm going to do is to put them on GitHub, but it really depends on your setup. If you have an internal Git repository, you can just push it there, or if you have a private GitHub or anything else where you're storing your Git files, you don't have to do it on GitHub. In my case, I'm just using it for this example. So I'm a GitHub, and I'm gonna quickly create a new repository. I'm gonna call it the same as my project. Postman Jenkins. I'm gonna just leave it as a public repository, and I'll simply create it. And now, because I already have an existing repository, I'm gonna just add another remote, and I will push the information that I already have to master. So I added the remote. And pushing to master. And if we go back to GitHub, I'm going to refresh this page, we'll see here our test setup. And so far, so good. So the next step would be to use Jenkins pipeline-dsl to actually run this test. So I just started a new Docker image with Jenkins and basically Jenkins still needs to be configured. So I'm going to type here the initial password, and actually have to go through the setup wizard, and I'm going to install the suggested plugins, which might take a while. Okay, so all the plugins were installed, and I'm just going to continue as an admin. And let's get started with Jenkins here. Great, so as you can see, I don't have any jobs here, but one possibility would be that you already have a pipeline. And I'd actually like to show you in the new pipeline plugin that Jenkins has. And this is why I'm going to use this pipeline. This is also called pipeline as a code, because you can put the entire pipeline in a Git repository. So let's call them, how do I call them? Let's call them JSON placeholder API tests. So I'm going to select pipeline here. Great. In the second part here, you'll see that I have the pipeline script, and I'm not going to use it from an external source, but I'm going to just write it inside here. If you've never written a pipeline, I can just take you very simple through it. We will define here a new stage, and let's call them postman tests. And the stage will consist of a couple of steps that we need to do. So first we want to check out this Git repository here. So I'm going to use Git and paste this, and this will check out the repository in the workspace. Additionally, I want to run a command to install all the dependencies. So I want to run an npm install. And after we installed the dependencies and we are sure that Newman is available, we'll run another command, and this will be npm run. And what we actually want to run is this command here, so API test production. So I'm going to put this in here, and this is pretty much all we need to do at this point in order to execute the test. So let's see if it works. I'm going to save it, and of course I haven't defined any triggers yet, so I'll have to build it manually. Of course, the first run will take a bit longer because of the npm installation, which needs to download all the dependencies for Newman. But this will happen only once, basically, and all the future runs will be much faster. Okay, so Newman was properly installed, and it executed a test that we had. So we'll see that in total there were 4 assertions and everything is a success. And this looks good. So the tests were all successful. Let's try to fiddle with them a bit and to make them fail as well. And for that I'm gonna change the test that we're having. And let's see here the response time. Maybe I'll make it at 800 milliseconds. And I'm going to build again, and this should be much faster. Okay, so we now have a failed test, and as you can see here, the build job itself is failed, but we don't have a clear indication on what actually failed. So if you don't want to read this CLI report here and to actually get Jenkins information and Jenkins reporting, we'll have to do some small changes to this. And if we have a look at the Newman documentation, we'll see here that there is a JUnit reporter available. And we will actually want to use that. So going back here, I'm going to edit a command that is being run. And let's put it here, newman.xml. This is the report file that will be generated. And I'm almost certain that we should add reporters as well. We'll say JUnit. Okay, I'm gonna commit this change and we'll see what will happen now. So you see here that we have a reporter, but just running a report doesn't actually tell us here when we visit this page what went wrong. So we need to configure our pipeline a bit more. And we actually have to tell JUnit that we have here a report, and the report is called newman.xml. I'm going to save it again. And this will still not work because actually the Newman is stopping the Jenkins build. And even if the report itself was created, the publishing of the report doesn't take place. So you will see here that there are absolutely no changes to this because of Newman. So we'll do it a bit different, and everything that will fail here on the text execution will be in a try catch block. So whatever happens, this will not stop. This will not stop the build. Additionally, we'll say here that we'll like to set the build result to success. So if we managed to execute it successfully and we didn't throw an exception, then the build was successful because all the tests were executed. And if we have an exception because running the test exited with a 1, then we'll set the build to failure. Okay, and this will not stop the reporter from running. So I expect that after this build, we'll actually have some nice reports to see. Okay, so the tests were successful apparently. So let's run them again. And now, for example, the tests were read again. And the nice thing now is that we'll actually see the results. So we have a total of 4 assertions, and out of these 4 assertions, 1 of them failed. And with this, we can actually go here to the latest test result and see which one of them failed. And we'll see that the response time is less than 800 milliseconds failed this time. So if I continue to build the job, next time maybe the response will be faster and the build will be a success again. And this is just to play around with failing the build and making sure that the tests are properly executed and the results are properly recorded. And now you'll see I don't have any errors anymore. The build was successful. So everything seems to be recorded properly. Additionally, we can put here the CLI reporter as well, so that we can still check the output that Newman is giving. So we should see a detailed detailed information there. But other than that, just using the JUnit reporting is much easier to get an overview of what failed and how is the current test trend, to see how many failures were in the past builds and what is going on there. So as you can see now, I have the CLI reporting enabled as well. And that's about it. So to recap, I have my repository here where I have the package JSON. In this package JSON, I defined a script which I'm actually executing here. So when I'm running npm run ap test production, I'm actually running what's said here. And of course, you have additional parameters for Newman. So if you have additional parameters for Newman, you can simply add here. I didn't use any environment variables or something like that. I just focused on reporting and getting this collection to run. And additionally, I defined here Newman as a dependency. So this is what Jenkins job is doing, is installing Newman as a dependency. But as I told you, you can install Newman globally and you don't need this step. And after that, you will run this tests here, basically calling Newman. Newman will run the test for you. And if there's no exception, then the build is a success. If there is an exception, it means that something went wrong and it will fail the build. And in the last step, it will record the results so that you can anytime click on the test results and see how the test went and what actually was asserted. And if anything failed, you have proper navigation built in Jenkins. So I hope you found this tutorial helpful. If you have a minute, you can check other tutorials that I did on Postman. I invite you to like this video, to subscribe to my channel, and to leave me a comment telling me if you liked the tutorial, if you would like to learn other things on Postman or on Newman. And I'm really looking for your feedback on this one. Thanks for watching and see you soon.